Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. Tonight, we're going to journey back in time to a world of myth and legend. So, get comfortable, and let's explore the epic origins of the Greek gods. In the very beginning, there was no earth, no sea, no sky. There was only chaos. Now, this wasn't the messy room kind of chaos. Think of it as a vast, formless, primordial void. From T-Spoid, the first beings emerged. First came Gaia, the earth, solid and nurturing. Then came Tartarus, the deep abyss, a shadowy realm far below. And finally, Eros, the irresistible force of love and desire, the very power that would bind the cosmos together. From these first forces, others followed. Night and darkness gave birth to ether, the pure upper air, and Hemera. The day, their eternal chase across the sky, began the cycle of time as we know it. Meanwhile, Gaia, the earth, brought forth her own child, Uranus, the sky. He stretched out over her, a vast, starry dome, becoming both her son and her consort. Their union was powerful, and from it came the first generation of gods, the 12 Titans. These were beings of immense strength, each embodying a fundamental force of nature. Among the 6 sons were Hyperion, the Lord of Light, and Cronus, the youngest and by far the most ambitious. Among the 6 daughters were Rhea, destined to be the mother of the Olympian gods, and Tethys, the mother of rivers. But not all of Gaia's children were so majestic. She also gave birth to the Cyclopeas, 3 giants with a single, blazing eye, and the Hecatoncheires, monstrous beings with 100 hands each. Uranus, their father, was terrified by their sheer power and monstrous forms. He couldn't stand the sight of them, so he did something terrible. He imprisoned them deep within Gaia, thrusting them back into her womb. This act caused Gaia immense, unending pain. Her heart filled with sorrow and rage, and she began to plot her revenge. She forged a great sickle, made of the hardest flint, and presented it to her Titan sons, begging them to help her. But they all cowered, afraid of their father's power. All except one. Cronus, the youngest, stepped forward. He was bold, cunning, and ready to seize his chance. He took the sickle from his mother and hid, waiting for his moment. When Uranus next descended to embrace Gaia, Cronus sprang from his hiding place. In one swift, brutal motion, he attacked his father, severing his power and casting the severed flesh into the great sea, where the blood-speckled foam drifted. A new goddess arose from the waves, exquisitely beautiful. This was Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. The blood that splattered onto the earth, Gaia also gave birth to new beings. The fearsome Furies, spirits of vengeance, the mighty giants who would one day wage war on the gods, and the Malaya, the nymphs of the ash trees. With Uranus overthrown, Cronus claimed his father's throne, becoming the new ruler of the universe. The Titans were now in charge, and their reign ushered in what was called the Golden Agi time of peace and prosperity, where the earth gave its bounty freely, and there was no need for work or war. But Uranus had left Cronus with a chilling prophecy. Just as Cronus had overthrown his father, so too would he be overthrown by one of his own children. This thought haunted him, consuming him with paranoia. He married his sister, the gentle Rhea, and they began to have children. But with each birth, Cronus's fear grew. One by one, as Rhea gave birth to Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, Cronus did the unthinkable. He snatched each newborn baby and swallowed them whole, imprisoning them within his own body. He would not allow any child to grow up and challenge his rule. Rhea was heartbroken, watching her children disappear one after another. When she became pregnant with her 6th child, she knew she couldn't let it happen again. Desperate, she sought advice from her parents, Gaia and Uranus. They helped her devise a plan. Rhea fled to the island of Crete, and in a hidden cave, she gave birth to her son, Zeus. She then returned to Cronus, but instead of a baby, she gave him a large stone wrapped in swaddling clothes. Without a second thought, Cronus swallowed the stone, completely fooled. Meanwhile, on Crete, The infant Zeus was raised in secret. The nymphs, Adrastea and Idea, cared for him, and he was nursed by the the Curetes, a group of armed dancers, would clash their spears and shields to drown out the sound of his cries, ensuring Cronus would never discover him. Zeus grew up strong, powerful, and filled with a desire for justice. Once he reached adulthood, Zeus knew it was time to confront his father and rescue his siblings. With the help of Metis, the Titaness of wisdom, he hatched a brilliant plan. Metis prepared a special potion. Zeus, disguised, managed to give this potion to Cronus. The effect was immediate and violent. Cronus was forced to regurgitate everything he had swallowed. First came the stone, and then, one by one, his children emerged, now fully grown and furious. Ischia, Demeter, Hades, and Poseidon stood beside their younger brother, ready for war. And so began the Titanomachi, the great Tenir war between the new gods and the old. The universe shook with the force of their battles. Realizing they needed more power to win, Zeus traveled down to Tartarus and freed the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires, the monstrous children of Gaia and Uranus, whom Cronus had kept imprisoned. In gratitude, the Cyclopes, who were master craftsmen, forged incredible weapons for the gods. For Hades, they made a helmet of invisibility. For Poseidon, a trident that could shake the earth and seas. And for Zeus, they crafted the most powerful weapon of all, the thunderbolt. Armed with these new weapons, and aided by the hundred-handed giants, the tide of the war turned. The Olympians, led by Zeus, finally overwhelmed the Titans. They cast Cronus and his allies down into the depths of Tartarus, sealing them away for eternity. With the Titans defeated, the reign of the Olympians began. Zeus and his brothers drew lots to divide the cosmos. Zeus became the supreme ruler, the king of the gods and the sky. Poseidon claimed the seas, and Hades became the lord of the underworld. They established their home on Mount Olympus, and from there, they ruled over gods and mortals. But this wasn't a happily ever after ending. The world of the Greek gods was never one of absolute peace. It was a world of constant struggle, of shifting alliances, betrayals, and challenges to power. Zeus's reign was marked by a constant need to maintain his dominance, facing threats from both outside forces and within his own family. The story of Greek mythology is, at its heart, a timeless saga of conflict and creation, of love and betrayal, and of the eternal struggle for power. It's a reminder that even for the gods, the world is in a constant state of change. The halls of Olympus stood bright and towering, shaped from cloud and shining stone. Their ceilings shimmered with starlight, and their corridors opened wide enough for the winds to pass freely. Here the gods lived in clear form, dignified and radiant, greater than anything that moved upon the earth below. At the peak of Olympus sat Zeus, the guiding ruler of gods and mortals. His presence carried authority, and his judgment shaped the order of the world. In his hand he held the familiar symbol of his office, and from his throne he watched over every horizon. Yet even Zeus did not rule in isolation. Around him stood the other deities, each a foundation of the new age. Hera sat beside him with her own sovereignty. She governed marriage, family, and duty, and was known for her sharp memory and unmistakable resolve. She was steady, proud, and aware of every promise made under her protection. Demeter, the bringer of harvests, followed. Wherever she walked, the land responded with growth and abundance. She was the guardian of fields and seasons, and many on earth whispered her name in gratitude during planting and reaping. Hestia lived quietly among them as the keeper of the hearth. She preferred calm over glory and maintained the central flame of Olympus. Her influence extended to every home on earth, wherever warmth, peace, and shared meals held families together. Other gods joined over time, some born in Olympus, and others arriving through unusual circumstances. Athena was first among them, a figure of clarity and strategy. She emerged fully formed, armored in purpose, and became the steward of wisdom, craft, and thoughtful leadership. She valued reason and justice over impulse. Apollo and Artemis came next, children of the Titaness Leto. After a long search for refuge, she found a quiet floating island where she could finally rest. There she welcomed her twins. Apollo became associated with light, harmony, healing, and foresight. Artemis became guardian of the wild, the moonlit night, and all creatures that moved silently through forests. Ares, linked with the clamor of battle, was known for his intensity. His name carried weight, although the other gods valued discipline more than his restless energy. Hephaestus, skilled in metalwork and invention, shaped remarkable creations, homes, tools, intricate designs, and devices unknown to mortals. Despite the difficulties of his early life, he became essential to Olympus through his craftsmanship. Aphrodite arrived in her own way, associated with charm, attraction, and the unseen forces that draw beings together. Her influence touched both gods and mortals, often in ways they could not anticipate. Hermes, the clever messenger, came later. Son of Zeus and Maia, he learned quickly and moved freely between worlds. With his light steps and quick mind, he became guide, communicator, traveler, and keeper of boundaries. This was the court of Olympus, powerful, flawed, brilliant, and deeply intertwined. They debated, formed alliances, clashed over ideals, and shaped the world below through choice and emotion. Their stories filled the age that followed the fall of the Titans. They influenced the lives of mortals, guided heroes, and shaped the rhythm of the world. But before humans lived upon the earth, the land was quiet green, wild, and waiting. No cities rose from the soil, and no voices filled the air. It was Prometheus, a titan of earlier generations, who imagined something more. Prometheus possessed foresight and a patient mind. During earlier cosmic struggles, he had chosen the side he knew would prevail, not from loyalty, but from understanding. His brother Epimetheus acted quickly and regretted later, but Prometheus thought first and questioned everything, even the decisions of Olympus. He wished to see life take new forms. Some say he shaped the earliest humans from clay, forming them with care. Others say he shaped them in the general likeness of the god Zuprite, thoughtful, imaginative. However it happened, the first people appeared upon the earth, but they were fragile. They could not protect themselves from the cold or the creatures around them. Prometheus sought a gift for them, something that might help them grow and survive. But Zeus hesitated. He believed mortals should learn gradually, that they should remain aware of their place in the order of the world. Prometheus felt otherwise. Quietly, he carried a small flame from Olympus down to earth. When humanity received it, everything changed. Warmth, light, shelter, cooking, craft, tools, and communication soon followed. The world brightened in ways unseen before. Zeus recognized the shift and chose to respond not with destruction, but with a lesson. He instructed the gods to create something new, a figure who would carry curiosity, talent, and unpredictability. The gods shaped the woman from clay and gifted her with charm, intelligence, grace, creativity, and the desire to explore. Her name was Pandora. She carried a sealed container meant to teach humanity the nature of choices. Epimetheus welcomed her warmly, despite Prometheus's caution. Pandora, driven by her own inquisitive nature, opened the container. What emerged were challenges that humanity would encounter throughout life. Hardship, fatigue, uncertainty, impatience, conflict, and time itself. But one quality remained inside hope, ensuring humanity would never face its struggles without inner strength. Prometheus, for his part, faced consequences for acting without Zeus's consent. He was confined in a distant place, bound not by vengeance, but by cosmic law. Each day he endured his sentence, yet he remained steadfast. He held a secret Zeus needed knowledge of, a future event connected to Zeus. Es Legacian, that truth kept him alive and protected until the right moment in the story. Humanity, meanwhile, began its long journey. Though their lives were short compared to the gods, their choices shaped the world. Fields turned into farms, villages grew into cities, and stories formed across generations. Poets of later ages described the story of humanity as a sequence of Eris gold, silver, bronze, heroic, and iron, each with its own lessons. In the earliest time, during Chronosis' peaceful rule, humans lived simply and freely. The earth provided for them without struggle, and peace was natural. But as ages shifted, life became more complex, and with complexity came growth. This is how the gods and humans stepped into the world together through creation, learning, mistakes, gifts, challenges, and the slow forming of destiny. Olympus watched from above, and Earth changed below, setting the stage for all the stories still to come. There was no need for laws or swords, no need for kings or coins. These early mortals knew no hunger, no sickness, no grief. When their time came, they did not wither or suffer, but died as if falling into sleep. Their spirits became guardians, pure and watchful, wandering the world as kindly demonies, protectors of justice and peace. Theirs was a life of harmony, and theirs was the closest any mortal would ever come to Eden. But the Golden Age passed, as all golden things do. With the fall of Cronus and the rise of Zeus, the Silver Age dawned, a time of dimmer beauty and less noble souls. These mortals grew tall and strong, living long lives, but they lacked the wisdom and restraint of the golden race. They lingered in childhood for 100 years, ignorant and pampered, only to grow into violent, arrogant men who refused to honor the gods. They built no temples, gave no offerings, and mocked the laws of Olympus. For this, Zeus struck them down. Their spirits faded into the underworld, pale and forgotten, a race lost to pride and disobedience. Then came the Bronze Age, born of ash trees, the same trees used for spears and shields. These were not gentlemen. They were creatures of war, mighty and hard. Their very flesh was said to be forged from bronze. Their homes were bronze. Their tools were bronze. Their hearts seemed cast from the same metal. They lived for battle and died by it, sowing the world with blood and ash. They were terrible to behold, but not evil, only driven by the rhythm of war drums. When they died, they left little behind but shattered swords and empty fields. Yet, not all decline is steady. From the blood and smoke of the Bronze Age rose a brief and brilliant light, the Heroicid Age. It was not part of the descent, but an interlude of glory. These mortals were greater than those who came before or after. They were the demigods, the sons and daughters of gods and men. This was the age of Perseus and Heracles, of Theseus and Atalanta, of Jason and the Argonauts, of Hector and Achilles, and Odysseus. They fought great wars against monsters, foreign kings, and finally against each other at Troy. And stone. Some were even granted a place in the Isles of the Blessed, where heroes dwell in peace forever. And then came the age that Hesiod called his own, the Iron Age, where we still dwell. This is a time of sorrow and toil. Men now labor from dawn to dusk, raising children amid war and famine, growing old with pain and fear. In the Iron Age, bonds break easily. Justice, once golden, now walks with her eyes averted. Lies Arimaniotes are cheap, and the gods, if they still watch, do so in silence. It is an age of struggle, and it is said that one day even this will pass. One day, Zeus will cast down his thunderbolt, and humankind will vanish. Yet for all that, the Iron Age endures. Men still build, still hope, still tell stories of a time when mortals were golden and gods walked among them. And perhaps that hope is the one gift Zeus did not take back when Pandora opened her jar. In the waning light between the age of gods and the age of men came a generation born not from clay alone, but from divine blood and mortal wombs. These were the heroes. Their lives were brief, their fates often cruel, but their names would echo through time. Among the first and greatest of them was Perseus, slayer of monsters, founder of dynasties, and forerunner of all who would wear a hero's crown. Perseus's tale begins not in battle, but in prophecy and fear. His mother, Dano, was a princess of Argos. An oracle warned her father, King Acrisius, that his daughter would bear a son destined to kill him. So Acrisius did what kings do when faced with a truth they fear. He tried to destroy the cause. He locked Dano in a bronze tower beneath the earth, sealed against men. But the gods laugh at mortal precautions. Zeus, in the form of golden rain, slipped through the cracks and fell upon Dino. From that union, Perseus was conceived. When Acrisius discovered the child, he dared not spill royal blood directly. Instead, he placed Dino and her infant son into a wooden chest and cast them into the sea. But the chest did not sink. It drifted to the island of Seriphos, where a humble fisherman named Dictys drew it ashore. He took them in and raised Perseus as his own. But peace is never a lone companion to those who carry destiny. The ruler of Seriphos, King Polydex, desired Dano. Perseus, now a man, stood between his mother and the king. Polydex, unable to strike the son, chose cunning. He announced a false marriage and demanded gifts. Perseus, having no gold, boasted he would bring a greater prize: the head of Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze turned flesh to stone. The task was a death sentence, and Polydex knew it. No man who sought Medusa had ever returned. She was one of 3 Gorgon sisters, hideous and winged, their heads wreathed in snakes. But the gods favored Perseus. Athena, who held a grudge against Medusa, lent him her polished shield to use as a mirror. Hermes gave him a curved sword and winged sandals. Through wit and will, Perseus found the nymphs who guarded the helm of Hades, which made its wearer invisible, and a magical sack to contain the Gorgon's head. Armed with these divine gifts, Perseus flew to the ends of the earth. He found the Gorgons sleeping, ringed by the statues of those who had come before. He dared not look directly. Using Athena's shield, he walked backward, and with one swift stroke, severed Medusa's head. From her blood sprang Pegasus, the winged horse. As Medusa's sisters screamed, Perseus vanished, hidden by the helm of darkness. On his way home, he passed the shores of Ethiopia, where Princess Andromeda was chained to a rock, a sacrifice to a sea monster. Perseus slew the beast, turned it to stone with the Gorgon's head, and claimed Andromeda as his bride. When he returned to Seriphos, Polydex scoffed at his tale. So Perseus reached into the sack and withdrew the severed head. The king and his court were turned to stone where they stood. But prophecy is not so easily undone. Perseus journeyed to Argos, but King Acrisius, still haunted by the oracle, fled. Years later, at a funeral games, Perseus threw a discus that accidentally struck and killed an old man in the crowd. It was Acrisius, his grandfather. The prophecy was fulfilled, not be Malice, but by accident. Perseus had slain a monster, saved a maiden, and founded a line of kings. He would not live forever, but his name would. For from his blood would come Heracles. If Perseus was the first great hero, Heracles was the mightiest. His name, like thunder, carried weight across the Hellenic world. He was the great-grandson of Perseus, a son of Zeus, and, though blessed with strength, he was cursed with suffering. His birth was itself a trick. Zeus, disguised as the Theban general Amphitryon, lay with his wife Alcmene, extending a single night into 3. From that union came Heracles, and from Amphitryon, a mortal twin. Hera, Zeus's wife, watched with a cold and bitter eye. Seeking to destroy the infant, she sent 2 serpents into his nursery. But the child reached out with plump hands and throttled them both, one in each fist. His fame began to grow. As a youth, he trained in all the arts, yet there was something wild in him, a restlessness no tutor could tame. Manhood brought him both love and ruin. He married Megara, daughter of the Theban king, and for a time lived in peace, fathering sons. But Hera had not forgotten. She clouded Heracles' mind with madness. Raging through his own halls, he slew his wife and children. When the madness passed, he beheld the blood and ruin of his own house. His cries reached Olympus. But no, God answered. Have you ever wondered what it takes to become a legend? To have your name echo through millennia, whispered in awe and reverence. Today, we journey back to ancient Greece, a land of gods and monsters, to uncover the stories of 3 of its greatest heroes, Theseus and Jason. Their tales are not just about slaying beasts and winning battles. They're about redemption, destiny, and the very definition of what it means to be a hero. Our first hero, Heracles, is perhaps the most famous of all. But his journey begins not with glory, but with a terrible tragedy. Driven mad by the jealous goddess, Heracles committed an unspeakable act. To atone for his sins, he traveled to the Oracle of Delphi. The priestess told him that redemption could only be earned by serving his cousin, King Eurystheus of Tyrans, a man far weaker but fated to be his master. Eurystheus, goaded by Hera, devised 12 impossible tasks, known to history as the 12 labors. The first was to slay the Nemean lion, a monstrous beast whose golden hide was impervious to any weapon. Heracles, armed with only his bare hands, cornered the lion in its den and, with his divine strength, strangled it. He then used the lion's own razor-sharp claw to skin it, wearing its hide as armor, a symbol of his first victory. Next, he faced the Hydra, a 9-headed serpent that regrew 2 heads for every one that was cut, with his nephew Iolaus. Heracles battled the creature. As he severed each head, Iolaus cauterized the wound with a torch, preventing it from regenerating. From the final, immortal head, Heracles harvested a deadly venom, which he used to tip his arrows, making them lethal even to gods. His labors continued, each one a test of a different virtue. He spent a full year chasing the sacred Cyrenian hind, a golden-horned deer, proving his patience. He wrestled the ferocious Erymanthian boar into submission, showcasing his raw power. In a feat of incredible ingenuity, he cleaned the filthy Aegean stables in a single day by diverting 2 entire rivers to wash them clean. He shot down the Manatine Stymphalian birds with the help of Athena, captured the Cretan bull that had fathered the Minotaur, and tamed the flesh-eating horses of Diomedes by feeding them their own cruel master. He even journeyed to the land of the Amazons to retrieve the girdle of their queen His 10th labor took him to the edge of the known world to steal the cattle of the 3-bodied giant Geryon. Then, for his 11th, he had to retrieve the golden apples of the Hesperides. In a brilliant display of cunning, he tricked the Titan Atlas, who held up the heavens, into getting the apples for him, narrowly escaping being trapped with the burden of the sky forever. For his final, most terrifying labor, Heracles had to descend into the underworld itself and bring back the 3-headed hound of Hades, facing the god of the dead. Heracles was granted permission to take the beast, but only if he could overpower it with his bare hands. He wrestled the snarling monster into submission, dragged it out of the underworld, and presented it to a terrified Eurystheus. With this, his labors were complete. He had earned his redemption. But a hero's life is never peaceful. Hero's hatred followed him until his death, which came not from a monster, but from a poisoned tunic given to his wife by a dying centaur. As the poison burned him alive, Heracles built his own funeral pyre. He ascended to Mount Olympus, where he was granted immortality and finally found peace among the gods, his name forever synonymous with heroism. Our next hero, Theseus, was more than just a monster. He was a founding father of Athens, a city that would become the cradle of Western civilization. His story is one of combining strength with intellect to build a legacy. Born to King Aegeus of Athens, and possibly the sea god Poseidon, Theseus grew up unaware of his royal lineage. When he came of age, he lifted a great stone to find a sword and sandals left by his father, tokens of his birthright. To prove his worth, he journeyed to Athens by land, a path fraught with danger. Along the way, he single-handedly cleared the road of villains who terrorized travelers. He defeated the club-wielding Periphetes, the pine-bending Cenas, the sea-kicking Siren, and the cruel Procrustes, who stretched or cut his victims to fit a bed. Theseus turned each villain's own trick against them, arriving in Athens as a seasoned champion. In Athens, the Queen Medea recognized him as a threat and tried to poison him. But at the last moment, King Aegeus saw the sword and sandals and recognized his long-lost son. Their reunion was short-lived, as Athens was suffering under a terrible curse. Every year, the city had to send 7 young men and 7 maidens to Crete as tribute to King Minos. There, they were sacrificed to the Minotaur, a monstrous half-man, half-bull living in a vast labyrinth. Theseus, vowing to end this horror, volunteered as one of the tributes on Crete. He won the heart of Princess Ariadne, Minos' daughter. She gave him a ball of thread to find his way through the maze. Wit, ere help, Theseus ventured into the labyrinth, found the Minotaur, and slew it in a heroic battle, freeing Athens from its tribute forever. He escaped with Ariadne, but, in a tragic turn, abandoned her on the island of Naxos. Distraught over this act, or perhaps just forgetful, he failed to change his ship's black sails to white, the prearranged signal for his success. His father, King Aegeus, watching from the cliffs, saw the black sails and, believing his son was dead, threw himself into the sea in despair. That sea is now known as the Aegean Sea. As the new king, Theseus became a great ruler. He united the scattered towns of the region into a single, powerful city-state. Athens, he established laws, founded festivals, and laid the groundwork for the democracy that would later flourish there. Theseus wasn't just a hero of muscle, he was a hero of vision, a king who built the future. Our final hero is Jason, whose quest for the Golden Fleece is one of the greatest adventure stories ever told. Jason's story begins with betrayal. His uncle, Peleus, had stolen the throne from his father. To protect Jason, he was sent away to be raised by the wise centaur, Chiron. As a young man, Jason returned to claim his birthright. Peleus, fearing a prophecy about a man with one sandal, saw Jason arrive having lost a sandal while helping an old woman, the goddess Hera, in disguise cross a river. To get rid of him, Peleus set him an impossible task. Retrieve the legendary Golden Fleece from the distant, hostile land of Colchis. Jason assembled a dream team of Greece's greatest heroes, including the musician Orpheus and the swift huntress Atalanta. They set sail on a ship called the Argo, and their crew became known as the Argonauts. Their journey was perilous, filled with clashing rocks, harpies, and divine trials. When they finally reached Colchis, King Aegeus refused to give up the fleece. He demanded Jason perform a series of impossible trials, including plowing a field with fire-breathing bulls and sowing it with dragon's teeth that sprouted into an army of warriors. Jason would have failed, but he had a powerful ally, the king's daughter, Medea, a powerful sorceress who had fallen in love with him. With Medea's magical aid, Jason tamed the bulls and defeated the warrior army. Together, they put the dragon guarding the fleece to sleep, seized the prize, and fled Colchis, with Medea abandoning her family for him. Their quest was a success, but the story ends in tragedy. After returning home, Jason broke his vow to Medea by deciding to marry another princess. In a fit of vengeful fury, Medea enacted a terrible revenge, leaving Jason heartbroken and alone. His grand adventure, which began with such hope, ended in loss and regret, a cautionary tale about promises and passions. Heracles, Theseus, and Jason. 3 heroes, 3 different paths. Heracles sought redemption through strength, Theseus built a civilization through vision, and Jason chased glory through adventure. Their stories, filled with triumph and tragedy, have shaped our understanding of heroism for thousands of years. They remind us that true greatness is not just about overcoming monsters, but about facing the flaws and challenges within ourselves. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into myth and legend, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the ancient world. See you next time.